Hello, hello again. Once again, doing another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brought Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Brought Raven, 33-year veteran of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, role-playing games. And with me, again, my co-host this week, John Norris.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year, everyone. I hope that your holidays have been good to you and safe. And, well, we're about to head into 4 years of maladies and malcontentment, I think, but that's the way it is. But how was your New Year's, John?
It was good. I spent some time with my dad and stepmom and my brother and his wife and my niece yesterday. So we ate some good food and just sort of hung out a little bit.
Cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going through my own thing, if you know what I mean. But let's see what we got going on, because there's people who've been asking us questions I have not been answering for the last few weeks. I just kept forgetting to put them into our show. So let's go ahead and get to that right away. I think I did say Chris is in the chat. Hey, guys. But,
hey, Chris.
Let's go ahead and see what we've got here. Here we go. Hey, Bright Raven. Now that you're finally back, are you going to take on all the other podcasters and call them on their BS or what? Isn't it time to take the kid gloves off and just come out and say what needs to be said? This is multiple parties asking me that. I don't know. There's enough infighting and name calling and finger pointing in this industry as it is. I suppose that there will be times where someone says something so completely foolish that I could, respond to it, not so much as calling them out, but just maybe giving a different perspective on the same topic or something, I guess. I don't know, but we'll wait and see on that. But I don't see any reason to go into flame wars with other people's channels. Do you?
No.
I think that's just going to be more of a waste of time than anything else. Yeah, Chris also says take the high road. Yeah, I think that's, I think what people are hoping for is that I'll do Raven rants against Perch or your boy Zach or somebody like that more than anything else. And, I get it, but, what's the point? Okay, our next question. Are you going to have merch for sale this year? T-shirts, comics, etc. That is the plan. We're hoping to get things going. I'm still in the process of working on a storefront so that you guys can just order it right off the store and hopefully have everything shipped to you guys directly. I want to make sure I get all the payment processing correct before I launch the site and everything. So we're in the process of doing that. And once that's done, we'll certainly let you all know about what's going on with that. Next question is from JP. He asks, are we going to see more of your own official works? I watched a number of videos, and while you talk about the stuff you used to do, you rarely ever show it, and I cannot find much of it out in the real world. Well, we did show some of the stuff up on the wall behind me. If you I can't get close enough to this camera, but the stuff above the yellow door is Spacey the Alien, and that print will be made available when the store is open. And that was actually colored by Chris. That's one of my original characters. And we're going to have some T-shirts and other stuff with my own original characters on there as well. So, yes, again, you'll see a little bit more of that stuff. As far as the comics go, we're going through my again, what do you want to call it? My hoarder's room, where all my comics are, and try to get into the back area where all the old stuff from the 80s and 90s that I did is, so that we can pull that out and start showing some of that stuff later as well.
Cool.
Okay, next question. Now, this is going to be something we have to address in a straight up video where that's just a topic of discussion, I think. But if you were running Marvel or DC, what would their lineups look like? I mean, like do a fantasy league version or something. Who would you hire and why? And that's from Brian R. from Rochester Hills, Michigan. Like I said, that's a really big question. And I just don't know. We haven't had time to really think about that, you know. What I can tell you is I cut a lot of the books down so that characters weren't like having 6, 8, 10 titles featuring the same characters a lot of the time, and I'd make more diverse line of books in that regard. As for who's working on them, yeah, I think that I'd have to wait and just do that as an actual episode. What about you, John?
I would agree with cutting the number of books that characters have. As for creative teams, I really don't know.
Yeah, not off the top of your head, no.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. We'll come back to that question, Brian, up the road as a full episode. I think we'll sit down and actually break down some possibilities for what we might do if we were running the show, running the company rather. Me coloring. That's Chris. For those who don't know, Chris is a computer colorist. Well, you'd have some work, certainly. I just don't know what book yet, you know. But that's something I'd have to have a conversation with you on privately. But we'll talk about that later. Let's see. Next question. Now here's the real question. When are you guys ever going to review some Marvel comics? Are you just anti-Marvel or something? I'm going to let you answer that one, John.
Well, right now the only Marvel comic I read is Venom, and we're both quite behind on our comic book reading, so I, speaking for me personally, Venom will be coming in at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, probably February.
Yeah.
And we'll explain why February in a little bit. As for me, I'm not anti-Marvel. They just aren't producing anything I particularly want to read right now. The last thing I bought from them was the Avengers miniseries that Paul Levitz and Alan Davis did, and I haven't even read that book yet. So that'll be what I review next with them, and I don't know if that'll be next week or the week after that. But as far as reviewing Marvel as a whole, tomorrow we will be reviewing the Legion FX television series, the whole 3 seasons. So, we will try to get some more Marvel in there. We're not trying to be anti-Marvel. We're just not particularly engaged with that product line right now. And if there's something that you guys want us to try and take a look at and see what we think, let us know. Just email us. Email John Gray Figaro at hotmail.com or me at quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com. And, if nothing else, we can take a quick glance at it at the comic shop, assuming that it's in stock. And, even if it's only just a quick cursory look rather than a full read. Let's see what else is there. Oh, this is another one that's kind of for John. Question for John. Do you read any comics other than Disney brands?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. Yes, I do, as you will see in just a few minutes.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, Disney brands include Marvel, folks, so technically, so, it is what it is. But yes, we have been kind of circling around the same kind of content when we first started this season. We're going to be more expansive starting next week again. So getting more into the crowdfunding and into the other types of titles as well. So that'll be starting next week. Okay. So if you guys have any other questions for us, email us quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com, subject Q&A. And I didn't realize that I had the old, I got to correct that in the corner and put 2025 on that. That's okay. No worries. Okay. So speaking of reviews, let's go to John's reviews and start with a whole, I don't know, what do you want to call it? A whole imprint from Oni Press? I guess it'd be a good way to put it. It's called the NACELLEverse. And let's
yeah. I don't know if I would say imprint, just I guess a shared universe or whatever.
Okay, shared universe. That's fair enough. All right, let's start with that one then.
All right. So we're going to talk about the non-Disney comic. This is NACELLEverse. This is a one-shot. Publisher Oni Press. Writer Melissa Flores. Artists Ramat Handoko, Roald Marsalius, Francis Portela, and Diogenes Neves. Colorist is Howell Canola. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Lettering Taylor Esposito. Cover artist Marco D'Alfonso. Editors Chris Robinson with Carl Bullers. Designer Winston Gambro. Genre sci-fi action adventure. Release date March 2024. Audience ages 8 and up, and that's my rating. So, when his planet is annihilated by a cosmic disaster, the alien Great Garlu must begin a galaxy-spanning search for a new home, only to discover a bold new universe of champions waiting amongst the stars. From the genetically modified sectar warriors of the planet Symbion to the rabble-rousing biker mice from Mars, Garlu's quest for safe haven will set him on a one-way collision course toward 22nd century Earth, where the obsolete robotic work crew called RoboForce is about to forge a new destiny. In partnership with the Nacelle Company, Oni Press is proud to present a comics milestone 3 decades in the making, as a new universe of toy and animation icons rockets into action from blockbuster writer Melissa Flores of Power Rangers and the Dead Lucky, and artistic powerhouses Diogenes Neves from Realm of X and Suicide Squad, Francis Portela from Green Lantern and Faith, and more. The road to this summer's RoboForce #1 and Biker Mice from Mars #1 starts here with a momentous new jumping on point that no fan can afford to miss. Okay, so first things first, just what is the NACELLEverse? And this is what Wikipedia has to say. The NACELLEverse is an ongoing American transmedia franchise and shared fictional universe created by Brian Volk-Weiss and presented by the Nacelle Company, and it features several lines of comics, cartoons, and toys based on several brands from the 1960s to the 1990s that the company has acquired the rights to, such as RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars, Sectars, Warriors of Symbion, Power Lords, The Great Garloo, and Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa, all of which are represented in this book in some form. Now, having lived through the 80s and 90s, I was familiar with, or had at least heard of, all the properties except The Great Garloo. And it turns out Garloo was a remote-controlled robot monster created in 1961 by Louis Marks, whose company also created Rock'em Sock'em Robots and the Big Wheel Tricycle. But in this book, and he is the face in the center of that comic cover. In this book, he's a likable little green alien with a special ability that I won't spoil here, and he is our main character. So,
and there's the toy from 1961.
Yes. This book could easily have been a disjointed cash grab, but thanks to the creative team, it isn't. Flores nicely brings the properties together, allowing each one its moment to shine while also delivering a cohesive story. There's a feeling of unity in the artwork as well, even though the book has 4 different artists. My opinion is the difference in styles never feels jarring. I really didn't even think about it while I was reading. All in all, I believe this one-shot accomplishes what it sets out to do. It nicely sets up the NACELLEverse. It makes me want to read the comics, and it delivers a cohesive and entertaining story.
Okay. Now, I'm going to be honest. I have basically looked at, but not fully read the issue. I saw a little bit of a preview of it online. The reason I never got into this, the NACELLEverse, was basically because I'm turned off by the whole shared universe. I'm afraid it's going to lend to too many crossover storylines where I got to buy multiple books, and I'm not. The only story I'm really interested in possibly is Power Lords as a standalone series, and I just feel like it's going to end up tying into the rest of the books, and I don't want to do that. But you gave this a 4.5 stars, John.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I did any. No, I didn't. So, okay, let's just go straight into the next one then.
All right. So Biker Mice from Mars, #1, publisher Oni Press, writer Melissa Flores, artist Francis Portela, with Austin Backley for inks for issue #3, colorist Leonardo Pacioretty, with Dan Jackson on issue #3, lettering Taylor Esposito, cover Dustin Weaver, editor Carl Bollers, designer Winston Gambro, genre sci-fi action adventure, released July through September 2024. I think all of them are 3-issue miniseries. So what it's about. Rocketing out of the pages of NACELLEverse #0, the 90s cartoon sensation is back in a brand new comic book series from Red Hot writer Melissa Flores, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Spider-Gwen Smash, and Eisner Award-nominated artist Francis Portela of Green Lantern. Best friends Throttle, Moto, and Vinny were just 3 anthropomorphic motorcycle-riding mice who called Mars home and were always bad to the bone. But when the ruthless Plutarchians stage a mass invasion to strip their planet of its precious resources, their anti-authoritarian streak is going to turn into a full-blown insurgency. Only the biker mice from Mars can present the mass destruction of Earth's neighbor, and the freedom of our entire solar system may just hang in the balance. Leading into the upcoming animated series, the summer's most anticipated return revs up the action as a never-before-told chapter of biker mice history stands revealed. Mars War starts now. So my thoughts. So the original Biker Mice from Mars animated series premiered in 1993. Of course, it was one of several properties featuring anthropomorphic crime-fighting superhero animals that were created in the wake of the success of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Centering around three mice who escaped a war with the evil Plutarchians on their home planet Mars and crash-landed in Chicago, only to find that there were Plutarchians on Earth as well. I thought it was a cool show with loads of action, lots of humor, and a rock and roll soundtrack. It was also a bit more risque than some other shows, and it never crossed the line, but those mice were buff and macho, and they knew it. But with this series, Flores handles the story in a more serious manner, which I really liked. Throttle, Moto, and Vinny are still the buff bike-riding mice we know and love, but by setting the story entirely on Mars, we see how the Plutarchian invasion affects everyone involved. We get to spend some time with Moto's family, and there are two very poignant scenes with Throttle and his mother. And when the action comes, we really have a sense of the stakes involved, and the action looks great thanks to Portela and Pacioretty. Overall, this is a solid series, and again, I do like the more serious approach. And I will say, you don't have to have read NACELLEverse, the one shot that I just talked about. You don't have to have read it to enjoy this series.
Okay, good. Because of when the cartoon came out in the late 90s, I was in college. I wasn't watching cartoons. I didn't even have a TV. I was too busy doing things. So I wasn't particularly interested in that franchise. But looking at the sampler pages that you sent me, I went online and found a more full, completed version that I could look at. I think it's still good. Maybe not as good as you think it is, but I think it's good. Do you think the story market's for ages 8 and up?
Yeah.
I think it's a little more like 10 and up. But it's still at least marketable for younger readers.
Yeah.
There's a little bit, it's not that it's like a mature themology going on, but it's the potential for the violence is a little bit above what I think an 8-year-old would be able to handle. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so I'm thinking 10 and up. You gave it a 4 out of 5. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. And let's take a look at some of the artwork. And you go ahead and tell people what you think here. I mean, I was kind of surprised by Portela's art. I'm used to seeing a little bit different style from him. While this is still in the vein of what he does for DC on Green Lantern and other things, he does a nice job of making it feel like the cartoon as well.
Yeah, he does. Yep.
And here they are on Mars, and and it's like Mars has actual Earth-like qualities at this point. It hasn't become the red planet per se.
Right.
The Plutarchians are going to take all those resources and make it the red planet, so to speak. The one thing I didn't care for was the panel, right? The caption box in the top right corner of the first on a page on the left. I don't really like it when they do those darker backgrounds on the things against the black or darker background, it makes it more difficult to read. And I'll complain more about that on one of my books that I'm reviewing later. But this isn't as bad as the book I'm reviewing, but it still kind of bothers me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just me, or do you have a difficult time reading some of that when that goes on?
I didn't have a difficult time reading it here.
Okay. It's just what it is on the screen then. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. So I'm like, overall, it's pretty good stuff. Okay. Let's go with our next one.
All right. Robo Force. Once again, this is a 3-issue miniseries. Publisher Oni, writer Melissa Flores, artist Diogenes Neves, Julio Brilla, Marcello Di Chiara, and Elton Tomasi. Colorist Hal Canola, lettering Taylor Esposito, cover artist Dustin Weaver, editor Carl Ballers, designer Winston Gambro, genre sci-fi action adventure, release date April to June 2004.
24.
I'm sorry?
You said 2004, 24.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, boy. Age range, 8 and up. And I do feel, and I understand your point about being 10 and up for Biker Mice from Mars. I do feel that 8 and up is a suitable range for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So what it's about, meet Max 89, the latest and greatest innovation in the field of robotics. As a member of RoboForce, the crew of highly advanced androids that are redefining technological advancement on 22nd century Earth, there's no job too big for him to handle, but when their creator's newest invention is stolen by a rival company in a brazen act of corporate warfare, Max and the high-powered detonator are determined to get it back, even if it means breaking company protocol.
Breaking company protocol. Oh my gosh.
Shocking, right? Landing directly into the upcoming NACELLE Company animated series, enter a brave new world of incendiary action and robot-on-robot firepower in the first landmark NACELLE-verse limited series from blockbuster creators Melissa Flores, again of Power Rangers, and Diogenes Neves, Realm of X, and Suicide Squad. While this ties into the NACELLE-verse one shot, you'll see Garloo pop up, but again, you don't have to have read the NACELLE-verse to enjoy RoboForce. I haven't read Power Lords or Sectars yet, but at least I can say for Biker Mice and RoboForce that while they are connected, they do stand on their own very well.
Okay. One thing I will give them credit for is that they do have one consistent writer for all the books, it seems, and it does seem like they're trying to keep it all cohesive with their art teams and arts, everything on model.
Yeah.
With all different artists, which is, commendable. So many companies just have so many different versions of the same things that you're just like, that doesn't necessarily work in terms of reaching a not so much the comic book audience, but the more overall arcing audience, which is what they really need to be aiming for, since they're going to be doing the live action, or not the live action, but the animated series as well. So they want to do things that are going to match with both. So I think that's a good. I think you're doing a good plan as far as how they're executing things so far. Chris Hall mentions this. Valeria Von Doom is a Disney princess. I don't know. But okay. But let's go ahead and go back on this. Go ahead and talk about a little bit of the history of the RoboForce.
Okay, so unlike Biker Mice from Mars, which I was very familiar with, having seen the original animated series, RoboForce I was not very familiar with. So so I had to educate myself a little bit. The RoboForce toy line was created by the Ideal Toy Company in 1984. It featured robot action figures with suction cup bases and, quote, crusher arm action, as well as other gimmicks such as hooks or extendable guns. I personally never had any of the toys, nor had I ever watched the 1984 TV special RoboForce: The Revenge of Nazgar. So again, I only knew the property by name, so I came to this comic pretty much completely fresh. Flores delivers a story that focuses on the theme of feeling obsolete and the lengths a person or bot will go to in order to prove their worth, especially when they feel they've never had that chance. And I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. I think we've all at least kind of felt that way sometime in life. And I find the artwork very clean and colorful, and like the NACELLEverse one shot, and like we were just talking about the artwork. The first issue features 4 artists, with Tomasi and Brilla handling the art in the other 2 issues. But again, it's the style never feels jarring. It feels cohesive.
Right.
And I think the robot designs are nice. I think they honor the original's designs while updating them.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, I think it's a very entertaining read, and it makes me curious to check out their upcoming animated series. So I liked it very much.
Okay, now I didn't find a RoboForce thing online to see much more than what you sent me, so I don't really have an opinion on the book itself. I do like the Dustin Weaver cover that's depicted on the screen here, so I don't really give it a rating. You gave this one a 4 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you give the Biker Mice from Mars? 4?
A 4.
Yeah, and I gave it a 3. Okay, so that's fair. Here's some of the artwork, and this is you gave me pages from different artists, so it's not like the pages are in actual order.
Yeah,
but that, I think what you were trying to demonstrate here was how everything's pretty much on model.
Yes,
by different artists.
Yes.
And it looks pretty open, very well done as far as that. I think the colorist does a really nice job overall.
Mm-hmm.
He's got good depth and perceptions to a lot of this stuff. Now this is a little bit more different. While I'm familiar with some of these artists on other projects, it was kind of interesting to see them in this particular style, because I'm used to seeing them doing Marvel and DC characters, and this is something I hadn't seen them draw in. So it was quite interesting to see like Marcelo Di Chiara do this when I'm used to seeing some of the stuff he did for Marvel, back when he was doing Marvel Adventures and stuff like that. So while that was a while ago, it's it's just it's interesting to see the way they come up with some of what they're doing. And now, do you have the other books as well, and you just haven't read them yet, or just?
No, I still need to get those. I
Okay.
haven't gotten them yet, but I plan to.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. So if you're the editor on a book like this that has different artists all contributing to the same story, what part does the editor play in helping maintain a sense of cohesion?
Okay. In this particular case, it's whoever their art director is, their designer, Winston Gambo, has probably helped them design all the turnaround designs of the characters, and has helped, is more or less the editor's job to make sure they're all just keeping the characters on model throughout, and not overly. You want to put a little bit of yourself into it, but it's more put into like how you might pose a character or how you might be more dynamic than another artist in terms of the motion of a character or something, but you still want to keep the actual design cohesive with what the other artists are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, I wish my cat would shut up. He's being a brat tonight. It's the editor's job to make sure that if those mistakes are found, that they go in back and correct them. And so if you can find people that are all on the same team, it's kind of like working animation. We all know what the model is supposed to look like. We all know what certain things are doing. Just keep everything on point with the characters. And in the background, you notice that a lot of those backgrounds are a lot more open than, say, what you might see in a typical comic book rather.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to allow the colorist to create more of a consistent narrative visually that way. So like if Chris was coloring this, they'd want certain color palettes done for certain pages a certain way, not just in terms of in service to the story, but into how to make the color of the characters pop more and still be consistent no matter what the lighting and shading sources are. Because you know, if you go back and you look at some of this, and let me go back here, you'll notice there's a lot of flat type color on this compared to what we're used to seeing, and yet there's depth perception in that.
Right.
So, you know, let me see if I can. No, I can't. Okay. Because you've got that extra depth perception. And what's interesting is they actually have the Robo Force sticker, so to speak, on the center of all their chests. So you know who belongs to which group and who doesn't. You know, Max has his symbol right across his chest as well, to help depict. It helps you figure out which characters are who as well. So there's those kind of things going on. But like if this was colored by our friend Blonde, this would be a lot more. He would put a lot more color depth to it. And that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing because it would almost over render it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Chris, you got comments on that? Yes, he goes. They definitely went for the cell shaded style, and that is important because again, this is a series that's going to go with an animated series, and they probably are going to be cohesive with that design as well if they're doing it, you know, right in that regard. So I think that the colorist really helps bring a lot of that together. Whereas if you were to look at this stuff in black and white, you could see a little bit more of the depth, a little bit more of the differences in their line art. But like Chris says, even with cell shading, you can achieve a lot of depth, and the colorist does in this. Let me. There we go. Let me look real quick here. I'm trying to think of who his name was who colored it. It's not Taylor. That's the letterer.
Hold on.
Jower Joe Canola.
Yeah.
Yeah. and again, if you'll notice, he colors all 3 books. Taylor Esposito letters all 3 books that we've discussed here. It's all Dustin Weaver doing all the covers. It's like they've really done a really nice job of keeping a consistent team throughout their whole brand. So that's a good thing. Okay. And that is the Nacelle verse. So, there is one more thing we want to share. These are the 84 original toys that they were based on.
Yeah.
And technically, they were officially released at the 84 New York Toy Fair on February 4. But for those of you who don't know, my mother used to work for Toy City Toy Store chain. She was the lead buyer and executive manager for the company. And so she saw the preliminary samplers of these toys back in May of 83. So that it actually started in 83, but they didn't get the actual official release until the Toy Fair in February of 84. I don't know why they waited. They had the delay. Unfortunately, my mother's no longer with us, so I couldn't ask her. I think that production was a little bit high at the time for cost because of even though this was 83, 84, and OPEC was over, you're talking about plastics, and that means a lot of oil production and cost of production. And I think there was a little bit of an oil crisis in around that era, which raised prices up a little bit. I can't remember for sure. So I think that they delayed the release 6 months, and we're setting it up for the New York Toy Fair to be, to see it, and then it would come out in stores like March or April of that, I believe. But you can see how the characters have evolved from the toys that were made back then.
Yes.
But the toys were cool for what they were. But I mean, by that time I was like 12, 13 years old. I was kind of like out of toys by that point myself. So I didn't get those. But I remember them in the store because that was right before my mother, right before the Toys R Us bought out Toy City. So I remember some of that stuff back then. Okay. Let's go ahead and get on to the next one, which is stuff I'm going to be reviewing. And we're going to start with Cemetery Kids Don't Die, trade paperback, $17.99. This is also from Oni Press. The writer is Zach Thompson. Artist is Daniel Irizarry with Jay. I don't know how he pronounces the name. Jay Shaw, I guess. Colors is Brittany Peer. Lettering is by And World Design. Editors are Sierra Han and Jung-Hoo Lee. The genre is horror science fiction and was released as a trade paperback on December 3rd, 2024. What it's about. In a near future where society is obsessed with an online virtual reality game called the Dreamwave, the first gaming console you play while you're in your sleep, 4 friends, each dealing with their own personal traumas and dysfunctional lives, take solace and comfort in their little medieval adventure group and their otherworldly adventures. But when one of the 4 doesn't wake up and is trapped in a comatose state while still in the game in a hellish landscape, the others must re-enter the game to rescue them. What did I think? Conceptually, I think Zach Thompson has a reasonably decent story. It feels at times like he spends a little bit too much time in the gaming world and not enough time explaining the real world problems of each of the characters. I didn't care for the characters' names, meaning like the kids' names, not necessarily their character names for their gamer names. The lead character's name is Pick, and I didn't understand if that was a name short nickname for Patrick or something. Did they just call him Pick in the comic? I don't know. I didn't like how Pick and Birdie, his younger sister, their real life situation. They were in a car accident where their mother died and Birdie was injured to be permanently in a wheelchair, and both Pick and the father have injuries and guilt syndrome. I didn't feel like that was explored enough, particularly with the father character. The other two characters on left and right on the cover, Enid and Wilson, respectively, I didn't feel like they were as well developed in their story arcs either. So I would have preferred a little more exploration into that, rather than everything going on in the gaming side of the world. But I think in another medium like prose fiction or a movie, that would have been more explored. But in comics, it seems like the audience doesn't have the patience for real world storytelling and just want to see the fantastical stuff. So I think that's what Thompson played up here in the book. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I have what I see more potential in the story than what was given, I guess. So there's that. He also never explains why the other kids who play the game and also suffer similar fates to Pick, who's the one who ends up in the coma. They don't explain why that happens, and that kind of bothers me. There were some inferred possibilities, but there was so much potential for the broader story. Like I said, the technology is biomechanical. Was a Dreamwave tech becoming sentient and using AI to communicate with or attack the players? Was there a black hat hacker scenario messing the system up? Was there some sort of, flaw in the technology that caused this? None of it was really explained for what happens to Pick and the other kids who go comatose. Now, there's probably a reason for that, whether it wasn't the story that Thompson wanted to tell, or that it could be the title just never had that kind of support in the single issues to expand the tale beyond what was presented. So he may have had to truncate that subplot and focus on other things. Myself, I could have seen the story going at least 25 issues to tell a quote-unquote whole story that I thought the concept had the potential to have. Unfortunately, the storyline was only 4 issues. Now, these 4 issues conducted into this trade were really nicely done. I do like the book. I just feel like it had a lot more potential than what was given. Artistically, Irizarry does a really nice job. The characters are visually interesting, but I think at times the storytelling does get a little bit confusing in the dreamscape. Sometimes I think that's by design. Sometimes I just think it's because he missed the mark. It's hard to tell. Getting to see character designs more in the back of the trade paperback did help to clarify some of the issues I was seeing in the story. So I could see what he was trying to do, and I could understand why the choices were made that he made. And I wouldn't say that he made wrong decisions. How do I put this? Sometimes when you're doing your comic art and you've got really interesting character designs, like you look at this cover, you'll see half the characters. You don't really see any of their full bodies of the characters in their fantasy versions. And there's a lot of stuff where the panels are where you don't see the wholes of the bodies in action because of space limitations for the panels, and also because the designs are really intricate and it would be very difficult to keep them on model all the time. So I think the choice was to do more close-up shots in close action or something so that you didn't necessarily see those flaws in the art. But there were elements, both visually and writing, that just weren't completely fleshed out for my tastes. Again, that's just for me personally. The story itself is certainly complete without the other elements that I would have liked to have seen. I just would have liked to see a little bit much broader world building and characterizational stuff that just the story itself just didn't have the room to explore in 4 issues of storytelling. So 4 or 5 issues. Overall, the book delivers an entertaining story. And it's hard for me to grade because I'm torn between what was delivered and what I see as the potential. So maybe my grade's a little bit low, and I wouldn't dispute someone telling me that it deserves a higher grade, but I give it a 3 out of 5. And here's some of the artwork. And, here you can see they're just standing around. Now you get to see the figures.
Yeah.
But when they're starting to do, the live action, it's like you don't, there's a lot of them just cutting out like the lower half of their bodies almost in a lot of the panels.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, that's consistently done throughout. Poor panel design. I don't know if it's poor panel design as much as it is that when you're doing these kind of character designs for what they are, it can be very difficult to get the depth perception right and make it work visually and give enough space for everything to breathe visually. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like to do the medieval comics with all the armor and stuff, because that can be difficult to come up with. But this is a little bit better. But again, you can see like a really close up of where he gets attacked on the arm. And his hand gets bitten off, and he grows back his hand there, and then they're chopping again on the other one. And then again, they're right back to back poses where you can see their full bodies, but you don't really, it's kind of like they're stagnant. Whereas the other characters, the villains, are more active in posing. Does that make sense to what I'm saying?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I would have liked to have seen a little more visual dynamicism in some of the character I work in that regard. The artwork does get better with that as the story progresses. So it's not like the artist doesn't improve as they go, which they don't. But it's just something that's kind of bothersome to me for some reason. I don't know. And then this is back when they're in the real world. And, here you see them take the device off. And it's like the dream wave is on both sides of your head, and it goes into through your ear canal and actually like nerves with your brain or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, wait a minute, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but he got his head chopped off in the game, and he's got like this cut across his neck now. A scar.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah, and so it's like it's very strange on that. Chris doesn't like the panel layouts. I think it works in a way for a dreamscape to be bizarre. This is, here we are in the real world, and it's a more traditional methodology of the layouts, and things make a little more sense. Well, it's kind of a horror and fantasy science fiction gaming book too, so it's a bit of both. But yeah, I can see what you're getting at. This is, again, Pick, the male, and then his little sister Birdie, and he's helping her into the wheelchair. And they're going to have breakfast, and she's arguing about certain things, mostly because Pick never wants to talk about what happened, and she wants to talk about the accident and talk about her feelings and stuff, which makes sense. You know, I mean, some people don't want to talk about that kind of a trauma, and others want to talk it through so they can get, that's how they cope. So it's an interesting dichotomy between two characters in that respect. Okay, our next book is Green Lantern Dark, issues 1 and 2, 2024, $4.99 each. Publisher is DC Comics. Writer is Tate Brombaugh. The artist is Werther Della, colorist is Giovanna Nero, with lettering by Tom Napolitano. Cover artists, there were several of them. Della, David Nakayama, Hamari, Dan Jurgens with Norm Rappin and Alex Sinclair for issue 1. And I don't know who all the different various covers for issue number 2. The editors were Ben Abernathy, Andrea Shea, and Ash Padilla. Genre horror superhero, released November 2024 to the present. It's an ongoing series. So there's still going to be issues to come. What it's about: this takes place in the DC Tangent universe. All the heroes have made the ultimate sacrifice, staving off an attack from Darkseid and his plan of apocalypse, leaving Earth in perpetual darkness and overrun by zombies. These zombies are controlled by Solomon Grundy and another who controls him, and only one hero remains, the reluctant Green Lantern, Rena Mori. Only she doesn't see herself as a hero so much as cursed to have her lantern's light be a source of energy that the zombies are drawn to, so she uses it to draw zombies away from what's left of humanity's populace while struggling to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. And check the spelling on that.
Yeah.
But when a young girl shows that she has true belief in her, can Rena overcome the long shadows of doubt and despair crushing her spirit, and can Green Lantern's light rise above all? Well, what I thought. First and foremost, I originally thought this was just a one-shot book, not a series. So I was surprised to discover that it was a miniseries. I was very surprised when I saw the issue number 2 come in. So first, my initial thoughts is just as number 1 by itself. By itself, while it did leave several things unresolved for obvious reasons, I thought the issue was solid enough to stand alone on its merits, just as a single issue. But once I got the second issue, I reread the story from number 1 to get a better sense of what the writer was aiming for. Now, Tate Brombaugh is a new writer for me. I don't think I've ever read their work before. The plot of the story is easy enough to follow, but the first issue, while it left several elements unanswered, why is Rena the only hero spared? How and why does Grundy control the dead? Because this is not something that was in his normal power set elsewhere. But even with those questions unanswered, number 1 felt to me like a completed story, which was a good thing. Then came issue number 2. Unfortunately, all this issue did was raise more questions and not truly answer any of the questions I had from issue number 1. That is not a good thing. No matter how you pace your story, you should be providing your reader with answers and resolutions, even as you introduce new questions and obstacles for your characters to resolve. So I found myself not liking that second issue as much. And that makes the series seem a little bit lesser than it could be. But let's not jump the gun too soon, because there's 2 or 3 more issues to this series. Deladera's art is solid throughout and carries the book through the story, such as it is, well enough. But like I said, that second issue is sort of in a holding pattern of sorts, as it delves more into Rena's self-doubts and personal issues than dealing with the hows and whys of the circumstances of what's going on. And while I do think Brombaugh tries to provide reasonable character motivation and conflict, I feel like the book is too introspective in nature, and the lead character is not the heroine who was originally introduced in the Tangent universe back in '97. This version of the character is more defeatist rather than the enigmatic character whose powers from the Lantern resurrected the dead. In other words, she's supposed to have the power that Grundy has, but it's like Grundy stole her power and has control over the zombies, but her light still draws the zombies towards her, is what seems what's been going on. So I don't know if that's where the story's supposed to be going. If it is, that hasn't really been explained or hinted at. But I think that's what they're trying to go for. And I feel like I have to be critical of the writing for that reason. It's actually a 7-issue series. Pardon me. So we got like 5 more issues. So I'm kind of leery to see how long it's going to take to see where this develops. So we'll see. I just don't see where this story's going to take that many issues to tell, though, and I'm afraid it's going to become overwritten and just, kind of like padded out to make enough page count for a collected edition. And I hope I'm proven wrong. But because of how nothing really happens in issue 2 to speak of, I'm going to give it a 2.5 stars for now. And let's hope it improves as the series progresses. Our next book is from the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives, issues 1 through 4, $4.99 each. Publisher is DC Comics, written by J.M. DeMatteis with artist Rick Leonardi and colorist Rico Renzi. Lettering by Taylor Esposito. He gets around. Editors are Katie Kubert and Michael McAllister. Horror superhero, again, released September through December 2024. In this semi-Elseworlds take, we get to see what would have happened had Jason Todd survived the beating the Joker gave him, in which, in the original canon, he died. But surviving the initial trauma is one thing. Can Jason overcome the aftermath, and how will this affect Batman? Chris Hall says, to be fair, everybody in that dark universe is defeatist. In a way, maybe, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really see Tangent being defeatist. I thought a lot of the characters were kind of interesting back then, but I can see what you're saying, Chris. What did I think of this? Well, this series has a lot of hype and expectation behind it, a lot to live up to. And I can't say that DeMatteis and Leonardi don't try, but it's almost like this story has already been told multiple times in other Batman media. The psychologist character that's kind of like the narrator of this miniseries serves as a semi-reliable narrator because they're not really aware of. They know who Batman and Robin are and their identities and stuff, but they only know so many things. They don't know exactly what's going on in the minds of the characters directly. They only got secondhand. It was obvious to me that Jason was going to be drugged by Joker and turned into a sidekick, as that was something that was done in the Batman animated series and in the Batman series with Joe Madureira's art style. So that concept had already been done before. So I kind of knew how that was going to turn out, and as a result, the story fell rather flat for me. I believe if they had done this story decades ago, before the animated series addressed that kind of storyline, it would have been great. But because I already knew this plot, it felt like DeMatteis was going through the motions as the writer. As for Rick Leonardi, I liked Rick's work. I like Rick personally. But when he inks himself, it just feels a little bit too rough. I feel like he needs a strong inker to tighten his work up some. And what's with his feet? There are many bad feet drawn in this book or in this series. Look at the Batman's foot right here in the cover, for example. It looks like a horse's hoof stump. It has no shape. It loses depth perception as a result. And, you see the other foot behind here. It looks like a regular foot. And it also, because of the way that angles are, it's kind of weird. Whereas Copperhead's feet look somewhat normal. But it's kind of interesting that he had that kind of. There's a lot of panels where that was going on, where I was like, what's going on with that? It's just Liefeldian. So I'm like, do better than that. Here's another cover where, Robin's feet look like feet, and then Nightwing's feet are like, I don't know. The foot looks a little bit too big, comparative. It just doesn't feel like the whole shape, the right shape's there for me. Rico Renzi's palette is a bit too muted. You can see this darker thing. I completely hated the purple backgrounds on the caption box, which, again, like we were mentioning on Biker Mice from Mars, that really made it difficult for me to read. I felt like that was a poor decision on Renzi and editorial's part to do that. And it really took they lost a star just for that, to be honest. That's how much it bothered me. It doesn't help that I had really high expectations for the series, but this just wasn't the creative team's best outing. It's not their worst by any means. I don't think the book is horrible. It's just kind of there, average. And perhaps my expectations are just a little too high for this. But I give it 3 out of 5. And as you can see, here's all the purple. And it's all very muted. And, you've got these purple captions on purple pink figures and backgrounds, and it's very hard to read, and of course the lettering is done in that it's not cursive, but it's that like handwritten notebook writing.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to read too. I would have probably done yellow to make it stand out against the rest of the art to make it read myself. I just think that would have been better, but that's just my opinion. Chris, you're the colorist. What do you think? Purple is the new teal in the colorist world. Yeah. At least here, his feet were better. But since Chris, you're in the chat, do you agree with me about the lettering? The caption boxes should have been better colored a different color than what they are. He 100% agrees with me. Okay. All right. At least it's not just me. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. ZATANNA, Bring Down the House. This was a 5-issue series, $5.99 each. This is from DC Comics through their Black Label imprint. Writer is Mariko Tamaki. Artist is Javier Rodriguez, lettering by Hassan Atsmane El-Hal. Editor is Andrea Shea with executive editor Chris Conroy. The genre is supernatural adventure, released August through December 2024. What it's about. ZATANNA Satara works a stage show in a rundown Las Vegas casino, doing simple sleight of hand tricks, avoiding anything and everything to do with real magic, despite the fact that many others can see her gifts for what they are and want her to use them. When a malevolent demon bursts into one of her stage performances, Z must delve into her own past and revisit fractured memories of her childhood to fight the oncoming threat. But what happened in her past that made her renounce her magic? And will she be strong enough to survive and reclaim her family legacy and responsibility? Besieged by magical cultists and councils, demons, and other forces, Z has to call upon an old friend in order to help her figure out who she is, the rogue magician John Constantine, her ex-lover, and learn even more dark secrets about herself in the process. And even if she succeeds, who and what will she become? Well, what do I think about this? My first thought was I really wish DC would stop trying to rewrite this character's history all the time. Not that Tamaki's version is a bad version, it's not, but it feels a little bit truncated and really puts her father, Zatara, in a bad light, which I felt was completely unnecessary to the historical canon of the character, in my opinion. There's no reason to make this story a Black Label brand story. The artwork is light and brightly colored and would be just fine for kids to read for the most part. There's a few things here and there that you could say are a little bit too risque or a little bit too adult, but though, like there are some scenes inferring nudity, but the key scene of Zine and Constantine in Paris where he is inferred naked, they go out of their way just to infer it and not actually show it. And they don't show Z naked at all, which they could have easily drawn in where he wasn't inferred naked, and they could have just made this series PG-13 instead of a soft R implication. The thematic horror of what Zatanna suffers as a childhood trauma isn't presented darkly enough to warrant a Black Label branding, in my opinion. Yes, it is a very bad thing, and you can infer possible other abuses that Zatara may have inflicted upon his daughter, but that is all reader inference and not what is actually depicted in the book itself. And you can see, look how brightly colored these covers are. This is exactly the kind of coloring you get in the book too. So I'm a little bit confused as to why DC did this. I think they made a Black Label partly because of how there's an anti-Tamaki attitude in the fandom amongst the fans because of the I Am Not Starfighter storyline. And I guess by making it Black Label, it means this isn't for kids. So maybe the dumbasses who hated I Am Not Starfighter won't rant about this story. I don't know. It's good story, though, for what it is. Like I said a few minutes ago, the main thing I didn't care for was how they handled Zatanna's father and making him the passive-aggressive villain in the story. Javier Rodriguez's art was really nice throughout the series. I particularly like the way he inks Z's hair because it's a similar style to the way I shadow ink the feathers in my Raven Persona character, and that subconsciously gave me this sort of like her hair's like this feathery, exotic look to it in my mind's eye. So I liked that. But the series did seem to get a lot of praise from reviewers, and deservedly so. Reading this story makes me wish DC would do a Zatanna TV series with Serinda Swan as Zatanna, who played the character in the Smallville TV series, and Matt Ryan as Constantine, who played him in the DC TV universe, as well as the animated features as the voice of Constantine. And I would develop it by Paul Dini, Jeremy Carver, and David S. Goyer. Paul Dini because, well, he's basically married to Zatanna in real life. His wife, Misty, is actually a stage magician. And Jeremy Carver did Doom Patrol, and David S. Goyer was one of the co-producers of the Constantine series. So I would put them together and make a Zatanna TV show and actually either do this or do something kind of like this for a TV series. So it's actually a pretty well done book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Black coloring that just screams the colorist had a one-day turnaround. and he loves Z and John together, so that's cool. I don't know. I like these colors myself. I just think it looks really nice. And here's where I meant about how Javier's hair design feathering looks like the feathering from My Raven. So if you didn't understand that reference, there you go. Even with the same color tones and everything. But just give me a second. I will be right back. I want to show a little bit more.
So, Chris, did you have a nice New Year? A Happy New Year to you, by the way. Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay, I'm back. I'm just opening up the actual issue. Here's issue number 1. And again, you can kind of see that way he does her hair looks a lot like how I do the raven's feathers. But there you go. See how bright and open the coloring is on this. And, this doesn't look like something that's, dark and black label. We got to do,
Yeah, I totally see that.
I don't see why this needed to be that kind of a, even when you do, stuff that is more dark, like she's in her father's, in her study, it's all pretty well done and open. So there's no reason to have it be that bad. Here's a little spookier thing. She's got a demon running after her while she's running out in the desert outside of Vegas, like we all did when I lived in Nevada. We were all just running, jogging outside in the desert, out where the scorpions and the snakes and the stuff go. But again, really nice, vibrant colors, but very open. So, and it stays pretty much that way throughout the series. And I did like that about this book. So, again, I think, if they didn't have the Paris bedroom scene, and I'm going to go ahead and get that out real quick here from issue 4. I mean, there's a little more cell shady type coloring to it, but it's still pretty openly flat, And, when they get to, let me see if I can find it. I mean, that really isn't too risque.
No. It's better.
I mean, you get enough, you get enough of a hint.
Yeah.
But, they're covered. There's really nothing going on here that really shows me that they really need to be black label, So I don't know, but it's fine. Okay. And those are our reviews for this week. Now, John's going to be away for a couple weeks. He's got some family get-togethers to do. So we will not see him until the end of the month or even February again, unfortunately. Right. So safe travels where you're heading and what you're doing over the rest of the month, of course.
Thank you.
And next week, what I will be discussing and reviewing, we're going to get a little bit away from it. We've been covering mostly DC and Oni lately, so we got to kind of diversify things a little bit. So next week, we're going to cover Batman Dylan Dog, June, the Swan from Gotcha Man, the one-shot, Galaxy of Madness, which again is Mad Cave, Epitaphs of the Abyss, because I covered the Cruel Universe. I needed to get that one done. Parliament of Rooks and Space Usagi and more. Don't know if I'm gonna have a guest co-host or not, but we're gonna talk to some people and see if they'll come up. I realize that some of these I promised to have already been done. Holidays got things messed up. That's why they're a little bit behind, but that's what's coming up next week for our reviews. Also next week, Monday, I will be appearing on Grant Lankard's YouTube channel at GW Lankard1 on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live draw get together. I don't know what the topic is or what we're going to be drawing. I guess we're allowed to draw whatever we want while we're talking. That'll probably be about an hour to an hour and a half show. Again, Thursday, we'll be doing the reviews, and then hopefully a guest will be along with us. And then next week, Friday night TV talk subject will be the Netflix series Wednesday, based on the Addams Family character. And that will be at 8 p.m. with guests to be decided. But tomorrow at 8 p.m., our Friday night TV talk will be Marvel FX's Legion seasons 1 through 3. I don't know if Chris is going to be joining me or if someone else will be, but I will have someone to share that with. And so if there's anything else here, let me see. Nope. Okay. And so if you want to reach out to me, again, Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com is my email. You can also find me on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven. You can find John on Facebook at
John Norris.
And of course, you can see his email as well, grayfigaro@hotmail.com. So between the two of us, I don't know. I think we did a pretty decent night.
Yeah.
And I know you haven't watched Legion, so I guess I will see you probably in a few weeks then.
Yep.
Yeah. All righty then. Okay then. Let's see. Oh, people are asking me another question. What is the schedule for the season moving forward? This is not official, but this is possibly what we're going to start doing. Mondays might be crowdfunding talk, or it might be manga night. I haven't decided. Tuesdays would be what's in stores this week that I'm looking at getting, or what might be talkable. Thursdays is our roundtable discussions. We might have a live draw on Thursday, depending on what's going on. We might not. Fridays at 8 is our movie TV night discussion. That's been consistent. We're going to start doing weekend live draws probably around the 18th. So probably 2 weeks from Saturday. And then we're going to start doing more Q&A, question and answer shorts 2 to 3 times a week. Now, if I start doing these, a lot of these are going to not be live. They're going to be pre-recorded shows, particularly the crowdfunding talk and the what's in stores this week and the Q&As. But we'll see as things progress. Because I think if people just let me do the pre-recorded stuff, I can edit them to make them shorter, and I don't have to worry about having as much content as I do for the live shows. That makes it a little bit easier on me. So we'll see where that goes. But this is a tentative schedule, not the official schedule. The official schedule will probably get talked about probably next week as we get into more into settling into a regular pattern of how I do things. Okay. So that's it for tonight. And we always appreciate you coming by. Please make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed the show. Or even if you didn't enjoy the show, still subscribe. We'll do better next time. In the meantime, we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for TV Talk. And until then, have a good night.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year.